Merry Christmas.
Happy Christmas to you.
And a Merry New Year. I don't know. Hey, Jen.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very well.
We got no Christmas hats, have we?
I know, I forgot them.
But you're wearing red and I'm wearing green.
Yeah. But mine says l'amour.
That means love.
Yes.
Is it a Christmas jumper technically?
No, technically not. It's all seasons.
Looks like it though.
But I wore red because it's Christmas.
Yeah. And look
at these lights.
These lights.
So cute.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks for coming.
Thank you.
How you been?
Really good.
What do you think of Alfie?
Oh my God. You know what I think about Alfie. Alfie and I are in love already.
He's lovely, isn't he? I find that I've really changed my he's really changed me actually. And it's amazing how, like, when you look after something or someone, it really kind of brings out a different side of you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because you got a dog. He's French.
No, he's a British bulldog.
He's a British bulldog.
Harvey,
yeah.
He's like a little human being.
With one blue eye, one brown eye.
That's why I got him, actually. Yeah.
That's why you got him?
Yeah, because we were
You're a
looking
David Bowie fan.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, we were looking for a bulldog, but we didn't want one. They were, at the time we got him, because he's going to be 10 or 11 now this February. And so at the time that we wanted to get him, they were only really breeding them as show dogs. And we were like, we don't want a show dog. We just want a family dog. And we contacted this person in Cork, and they were like, actually, we have one puppy who you wouldn't be able to show him because his eyes are a different colour. And we were just like, we'll take him.
Okay.
Yeah, we went down and literally fell in love with him instantly. The cutest puppy ever.
What age is he now?
I think he's going to be 10.
10 years old?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Which is very long for a bulldog.
So you've had him since he was a puppy then?
Oh, yeah. We actually got him at 5 weeks old because the mother had rejected him. And so we had him because normally they're supposed to be there for at least 8 weeks or something. And so we got him really, really tiny. And he was gorgeous.
Why did the mums reject the dogs, their puppies?
I don't know, but he had... The mother had 13 puppies, and then her mother, I mean, this guy's breeding dogs. This is like a whole other topic of breed. I don't know if I'd ever get a pedigree dog again. Definitely wouldn't recommend it, because they come with so many problems, and it's not very fair on them, and definitely not fair on you, like you get a bulldog or any of these kind of dogs, like you're paying an absolute fortune in vet bills. Like they've got skin allergies, they've got issues with their digestive system. We're okay because Harvey's okay with his breathing, but a lot of bulldogs have issues with their breathing and all that kind of stuff. And so her mother also had a litter of like 12 or 13 puppies as well. And so this guy had like a huge amount of puppies in the house, and so I think that's what happened. Harvey was just pushed out. Because
when we met Alfie, he wasn't called Alfie at the time, obviously we called him that, but it was the same thing. The mother had rejected him, and because you feel, I don't know, I felt like this is my first time ever having a pet that's mine, as opposed to it being the family pet. And I think part of you feels like it feels wrong to take a baby away from its mother, but the mother doesn't want it. I suppose because in the wild, I mean, all dogs are descended from the grey wolf, and in the wild they would eventually quite quickly have to fend for themselves. It's actually a human baby. We're quite unique because we depend on our mothers for so long. Whereas look at a deer. Deer comes out of the vagina, because this is the kind of podcast this is going to be, so let's just get that V word out in the open, even if it's a deer's one, right? Comes out.
The deer comes out of the mother's belly button.
Yeah, exactly. And so it comes out of the mother, and it's walking straight away. So we're actually unique in terms of how much we need our parents. So from deer's vaginas to humans' vaginas, okay? This is the Sexmas special.
Yes.
That's what it's going to be called.
Yeah.
Because the reason why we're here is because of sex, myself and yourself. And I think that before you came today, we were talking about you are very popular on this podcast. A lot of people really like what you speak about, and I think it's because it's topics that we don't really chat about too much, especially men. And I know that from speaking about the women's circles that you do, which is fantastic and needed. There seems to be a lack of that for men.
Yeah.
Why is that, do you think?
No, it's not. I mean, it's like everything. There's kind of a lack of women's circles as well, a little bit in Ireland, and anyway. And I think all of this right now it's moving over here. It's coming to Ireland. There are definitely men holding men's circles, and actually, I asked on Instagram. Tell me where the men's circles are in Dublin, so I can give a little shout out to all of those men that are holding spaces like this. I mean, very specifically from my point of view, because I'm dealing a lot of work around my women's circles are all around sexuality and orgasm and all this kind of stuff. The men that are coming and asking questions of me are very much more around sexuality as well, and they're like, is there anyone doing this stuff for men? And I don't know exactly what's happening in the men's circles, but I'm not too sure. And it's such a shame for me as well, because on one hand, the information that I'm giving to women, it's very easy to it's similar, because we're humans, it's very similar and just needs to be slightly I don't know, reorganized or something, and you can say the same thing to men. And it's so, it's very beautiful. What I love about the podcast is actually, like, for example, I ask questions and say, like, men, tell me what you want to know, this was like yesterday, I just put it up on Instagram and I was like, tell me what you want to know, because I can just keep talking, up a store myself, but I want to know, like, what are your questions and what do you want to know? And I have some people replying, like, messaging me, but I know absolutely every single person who read that wants to know something, and something stops them from participating, and asking. And maybe it's to do with a shyness or a shame, where it's like, oh Jesus, is she going to think I'm a pervert if I ask this question?
That's an understandable fear.
Yeah, and for me, like, I'm very open, like, I am. I'll talk about anything with anybody, and also I feel like maybe I can say this about myself, like, but I hold an awful lot of stuff in a very non-judgmental space, because I'm very curious. Like, I love to connect with people. I want to know, what's going on with them and how their minds work, and what questions are alive for them. And I think in this world, in this day and age, we have very few sexual mentors, not people that we're having sex with, but there are very few people that we can kind of turn to and ask questions, and and so our curiosities tend to live inside of us, and we don't have these role models. We don't know where to look for them, and now this is like, there's a huge wave of this. Like, I mean, I'm part of that wave. I know people in this wave, who are stepping up as people to be like, yes, let's talk about sex. Like, let's start to say, let's put the word out there that, like, even sex is okay to say, and let's talk about premature ejaculation. Let's talk about masturbation. Let's talk about porn addiction. Let's talk about connection, because ultimately all of us, every single one of us are have a desire for powerful relationships in our lives, whether that is with ourselves and with other people, and not just partners, but with family and with friends, because this is really where we deeply become alive and also thrive in our lives. We thrive in relationship to people, and so a lot of the stuff like that, that I'm talking about, and all of this for me is more about, how to be a human being. We were speaking with friends the other night, actually, and they were like saying, well, what is Tantra to you? And for me, this is such a big term, because because you have, like, everything is Tantra, you know, everything is when you're living in that space, you know. And I said this, you know, in the second podcast we did together when I talked about like this, you know, relationship that you have with life, that the world outside is also the world inside, that everything is a map to bring us back towards ourself, you know, and that this is this is Tantra, you know, like right now, us connecting and being in this space together with a presence, you know, this is relationship. It's also Tantra. It's like the weaving of life. It's to recognize the webs of connection that are existing through life. And once you have this very real experience of that in your life, you can't live pretending that you don't know it's existing anymore, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, everything is Tantra in a way. And then when we talk about, you know, what is Tantra yoga, and then what is, you know, what people are calling like neo-Tantra or like sexual Tantra, you know? For me, like neo-Tantra and sexual Tantra is just like how to be a human being, like how to be a better human being, how to relate to others, yeah, and how to move into relations and exist with other people better.
Yeah, but it's hard. I mean, say Instagram, for example, if you hashtag sex, or say when I did the Mark Whitwell podcast, episode 80. So when I did that one, it was entitled God and Sex, which is his book. And then I put in a hashtag God and Sex, and my thing got flagged for using the word sex.
Oh yeah.
So it just goes to show you that I think this is the power of the podcast medium, because we can talk about sex and without it being flagged by things like Facebook or Instagram, who assume the worst, as it were. You know, they see the word sex and it's just an algorithm. Whereas when you have it in this medium, in this context, it can't be. Mind you, saying that on YouTube now, what they're doing is, I don't know if you're aware of this, but it's a big deal for a lot of YouTube creators. You have to say now whether it's safe for kids or not. So a lot of adults that are making, say like one guy, he has a Lego channel and he makes incredible structures using Lego, but he's suffered huge losses because he will say some words that, like, he'll swear, for example, in some of his videos. So now he can't make a living because it's supposed to be designed for kids. So for example, now say with YouTube, they're even getting it, because they're owned by Google, they're getting very militant about sex and it's and as you said, I think that's why podcasting is so powerful. I mean, you mentioned that, you know, some of the questions you got were actual like essays that were really, really long, weren't they? So
From the men.
From the men, yeah. And this shows you that people want to delve into this in a bit more detail. Why? Okay, so do you know what we should do?
What?
Should we just do the questions now?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've got loads, basically. Shall I start with my ones?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also coughing a bit, so apologies for that.
That's okay, you got your tea there. Yeah, we got loads of questions, listeners and viewers. Okay. So I'll bring up my ones first.
Okay.
Shall I do that?
Yeah. Bring up some of these.
Okay. Right. The first one. Have a blessed day. It's not a question. Okay.
Thank you.
Again, okay. How is she so smiley all the time? It's so infectious. Actually, that's a good question. Why are you always so happy? Huh? What is it?
Because I'm having sex with life at every moment.
Yeah, because but really, you always are in a good mood, which is great. Do you ever get? I mean, this is quite
Of course, I get in a bad mood.
Yeah.
I get grumpy. I get angry. I cry. You know, I'm a living, breathing human being with all of my emotions intact. You know. And
do you think that, like, because you are so in touch with your emotions, and if you're upset, you would cry, that makes you a lot more? Then I suppose it's easy for you to be happy.
I don't know if I would necessarily use that language. I mean, for me, I have always been like this. I have a huge passion for life, you know. Do you know we all have our gifts, you know, that you know, some people are like really good communicators and this kind of stuff, and some people are, you know, I don't know what like categorizing people now, but some people are like super smart and they're like really intelligent and they're doing all this research, and like some people are just really, like, I feel like my superpower, if I was to categorize it, is this ability to be passionate, and for me as well, it's enthusiasm, and it's also as well inspiration. You know, I find this in life all of the time. Like I like, I'll be walking down the street and like my friends who know me best like know that this will happen, you know. I'll be like, you know, we'll be like chatting and then I'll be like, oh, look at the clouds, you know. Like, and it's just like, and for me it's like these moments, like I'm I don't know, I've always been like this, like very awake to life, and I allow life to penetrate me, and I allow it to take my breath away all the time, and this is that, to be inspired, you know, like and to really like receive life. And for me, my passion and what drives me in my life is always like, I always want to share this, you know. Whenever I've been passionate about anything, I'm like, I want to teach this now, you know, not because I'm like, look at me, I'm so good at this, but because, you know, I'm kind of like, you know, even with teaching yoga, it's like, you know, if you want to learn yoga, learn from someone who's passionate and alive, and that this yoga is alive in them, because inspiration and passion is infectious, you know. And
it's a cycle as well then, because when you have that, like say when you're growing up, if you are always in like, you know, you're smiley, you think you think on the bright side of life constantly, then people treat you differently. And then when people start treating differently, they're like, oh, this person's in a good mood normally, they have positive energy, they give that back to you, and then it keeps feeding itself. I think.
Yeah. And do you know also, because I have an identical twin sister. Okay.
Of course, yeah.
And I have dimples and she doesn't. And so when people would first meet us, they would be like, Jenny, smile, you know? And so they'd smile to see who has the dimples. And they'd be like, oh, that's Jenny.
Yeah.
So essentially then when I would be meeting people, I would just be smiling in the beginning, so I wouldn't have to be told, smile.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, oh, if I smile, people will know it's me.
That's your idea,
you know?
yeah.
And I had this as a kid, you know, so.
That's interesting. I mean, I don't want to get too personal, but like, say your parents and stuff, when you were growing up, were they very like smiley with you and interact with you a lot?
My parents are, yeah, but also growing up with an identical twin sister, I was never not alone. Like, we were constantly together, constantly playing. Like, when we were kids, we were feeding our imaginations. We were like, my parents, I was very, very lucky. Like, our childhood was very rich. Like, anything that we ever wanted to do, we could do it, you know.
What do you mean by rich?
Like full, like rich, you know, like it's just like not a lot of wealth, you know. We were so rich. No, but like very rich, you know. Like when I think back of my childhood, there is almost no moment that I remember of ever feeling bored or feeling like I was just doing nothing. I felt like, you know, for me it was like if I wanted, like for me, I loved drawing, you know, and I loved doing anything to do with art, and my mum was amazing, like in terms of feeding our curiosities and feeding, you know, the things that we were kind of like looking to explore and things like this. And we were super, super into sports, my sister and I. And this is what we filled our life with when we were teenagers. And my dad literally, like, he would come to every single, like, we used to play basketball and loads of other things, but he would be at every single game, you know. And my mum would be like, they were very supportive and really encouraged us and gave us space. And we were very fortunate like this to really live fully, you know, as children, you know. I remember like skating around the car park of a supermarket. We met up with all of our friends on a Tuesday evening to go roller skating. And it was just like, yeah, we had a very beautiful kind of community of children who were also our age and mothers who would like get together and, you know, and do all these kind of activities with us, which in a way, you know, is quite sad in this day and age because of how life has kind of moved and changed, and like all the pressures that we have, and like just the cost of living as well. Being able to do that is back then it's such a luxury, you know, that I don't think a lot of people can afford.
Yeah, I think that as well, growing up with an identical twin, you've got a best mate from day one.
Oh, day one, yeah.
And I have an older sister, 1 year older, and it's the exact same thing. You know, you have someone to interact with straight away. And in fact, they say that not in your case because you're the exact same age, but if you're the younger child, you are normally more outgoing because the first child is born, they don't have a sibling, and they're a bit quieter because they've got no one to speak to. And the second child comes along, and they've instantly got someone to. This sounds a bit Freudian and a bit weird, but well, I'm going to say it anyway. But suppose you have an older sister that's quite older, you're naturally a lot better with women as you get older because you're comfortable with women.
Okay, yeah.
So, well, it's not too. That is kind of a bit Freudian, and I was the same when I was, then a little boy. I was real comfortable with girls. I used to have a few girlfriends when I was like 6, 7 years old. Yeah, like, oh, hold hands with her, I'm gonna dump her because she got bogeys, and that kind of thing. So player. And I got to like teenager, I got spots, and it just went downhill. But yeah, there's your and also how much your parents and how your parents interact with you. Like my dad said something really beautiful about my mum once. It was her 50th birthday, and he had a few beers in him, but he said, well, what I really love about your mum is she smiles last thing at night and first thing in the morning, and that's what she's like. My mum, you could wake up at 3 a.m. to ask to take to the airport, and she'd be smiling and asking how you are, make you a sandwich, and she's always like that. And I think that when you've got a parent like that, even just one parent, and they're looking at you in the cot, you're looking up at them, they've got a big smiley face, eyes all beaming, and they're giving you loads of love and all this kind of stuff. That has to,
little baby Kevin.
Yeah, that has to affect.
I'm having visions.
That has to affect how you then treat people that are out in the world,
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, that definitely has effect.
Hugely. Okay, so went off one there, but shout out to Mrs. Boyle, by the way.
La la
shout out to
daydreaming
to Kathleen.
Childhood.
Recommendations for starting to start. Oh, by the way, that question. This question: recommendations to start learning about Tantra. The reason why I think it's important we do these questions is one, we got so many, and two, the last podcast I did, which is out next week with Kira Walsh, I forgot to ask the IG questions. Got a bit carried away. So let's do these. Okay, recommendations.
We both know I can get carried away. Now keep me on point of the questions here, please, Kevin.
Okay, yeah. No, it's
referee me.
Recommendations to start learning Tantra, smiley face.
Okay, but this is sexual Tantra, I'm going to say. We define it like this, maybe. What do you think?
I won't say this person's name, but it seems like a...
Book recommendations?
It just says recommendations to start learning about Tantra. But smiley face does suggest it's a bit cheeky. Like, how can we...
Okay, let's just say because... First of all, I think, and this is very personal to me, I think when it comes to these practices, that it is super important to have a practice that you do that brings you into connection with yourself. Yeah. And so obviously I speak about yoga in this regard. For me, engaging in this way it would be almost impossible, I think, if I didn't have a yoga practice. And it doesn't have to be yoga. Like, this could be like, people speak about the similar effects, like, if you're a musician or if you're a painter or you're a writer or you simply just really enjoy nature, but having something where you are coming to yourself first. I can talk more about this later, but that's like something to anchor in to your own sense of self. And then secondly, really nice, like there's so much information out there, like with regards to, I'm going to say sexual Tantra, even though we could get real nitpicky about language. And in terms of, because there's a lot of books written about like practices about how to connect, like in terms of meditations to yourself, meditations with your partner. And if you are looking to connect on a deeper level sexually with somebody, it's very important that you also have practices that you do together. Yeah. Because you, first of all, you have your own meditation, you're feeling your own energy, you're feeling how it moves when you're just on your own and when you're by yourself. And when you add another person into the mix, your energy will move differently. It responds differently. This is where astrology comes in. Yeah, like how you kind of connect, like in terms of what your chemistry is, like energetically and all this kind of stuff. And so to have practices that you can do together, there's loads of books out there. I maybe a list off the top of my head, but like definitely one by Margaret Anand is she's got tons of books, and I can't think of the names off the top of my head. Maybe we could write these down somewhere, Kevin.
I can put them into like the show notes. So after we stop recording, we can write them down and then stick them in the show notes.
Yeah.
So I will actually definitely put them in the show notes. So
write that down.
I will do.
And then message me, because if you don't, I'll forget.
Tantra books show notes. And the show notes for the people that are listening are like, if you listen to this, say on iTunes or any podcast player, you just swipe and you'll be able to see all the. It's like the description of what the podcast is about.
So like having practices that bring you into connection with your breath. And we don't meditate and to become better breathers. We meditate so that we can become better channels for life to move through us. And it's the same thing when you're in connection with somebody else, that and when you're trying to deepen your connection, to actually take the time, Kevin, to like sit down in silence with your partner and look at them. Eye to eye contact. It's such a huge thing, and so many of us don't take the time to do it, or if we do it, it doesn't last for very long. And then to sit in connection with sensuality, like practices around sensuality where it doesn't lead to sex, but that you're connecting and you're trying to understand and essentially discover the maps of pleasure on your body. And all of us are these beautiful like worlds of pleasure, like waiting to be explored, and how that energy becomes alive in you, and very specifically with the partner that you're connecting with in that moment. Some people are very earthy, and so when you're with them, you like their kind of earthy touch. It feels real safe, real strong, very deep and penetrating. Others like have a little bit more fire in them, that's like real sparky and kind of giggly and really like enthusiastic and a little bit quicker. Like you think about fire, it's like and even like you learn to touch like this, like learn to massage, even yourself. So I'm saying all of these practices you can do alone, you can do them with someone. Like discover your body, find out how it likes to be touched, especially men and women. We all have these cycles that we move through, not just during the month and whatnot with our own kind of with the women's like menstrual cycle, but also seasonally as well, and so
have a bath together.
Here we go.
Maybe
Kev just got a bat installed in his house.
I'm not saying that. No, once you're married,
checking the bathroom again.
Once you're married, obviously, just keep it clean. Boom. But yeah, you can like wash the person, or they can wash you, whatever.
Yes, connection. Yeah, real connection. And it's like and this is also the practice of like learning to receive. And this is really super important. And also, I'll say for men as well. I feel like men aren't taught how to receive, and it's something that they have to make space for in their lives. The yoga practice is great for this because like you receive the breath into your body, and how the breath can touch like the deepest parts of you, this beautiful tenderness that kind of strokes the inside of you, that no one else can touch. And as men, they're even in terms of like the sexual contact and sexual intimacy, it is taught that like they're penetrating, they're entering, and they're going into something. It's the women that is receiving. But men, and this is what I don't think men get thought about, and actually even women as well, like in terms of sexual relationships, there are acupressure points, on the lingam. penis, and inside the yoni. And
What's the lingam?
The lingam is the penis. You should know this, Kevin. We've spoken about it so long.
Well, I mean,
the lingam. It's the pillar.
Terminology,
It literally means pillar of light.
Oh.
Yeah. And so this is that kind of consciousness, that energy that you can penetrate with. Yeah.
No, it's a bit,
How we got it on camera.
That's a bit optimistic.
But it's not, because actually, you know, you could be here.
I'm saying the scale you're working with.
No, but it's not though. It can be like boom, you know, because it's the energy, you know. It's nothing to do with the size or the erection and the hardness. And this is the beauty actually of like when it comes to like men trying to like, you know, break down the barriers of what they think they need to look like and whatnot when it comes to making love, you know. Your face right now, Kevin.
No, I'm just trying to concentrate.
Okay, you're like
no,
but
it's
like
okay.
But when they think, you know, that like they're that they have to look a particular way and be like a particular hardness and size and whatnot, and if they're not, then they're somehow less than. It's not about this. There's an energetic connection and an energetic flow between people, you know. And so when the tip of the lingam touches the cervix, the inside the yoni, this connection is made, and now a man is able to receive the woman. This is when a man takes the woman in. So he literally receives the nectar of the woman. This is known in the tantric and Taoist traditions, you know. And oftentimes we don't even get to that point because it's just kind of like, oh, I've penetrated now, I'm in, we're going for it, you know. And this is not just men, it's men and women together, you know, that have these perceptions around what sex is. I said this in the last one, that, you know, our sexuality has been, you know, commoditized, and it's like we're taking in all of this information all of the time about what sex looks like, how long it should last, what it should sound like, how it should feel, and so we're actually on autopilot and not in real connection with the person that is in front of us right now in this moment, going through everything that they're going through in their life right now in this moment, the emotions that are moving through them, the thoughts that are moving through them, their worries, their fears, their desires, the things that are making them happy, all of us changing, you know, all of the time. And this is the beautiful thing about like the whole practice of taking pleasure as a practice. One of the biggest things like that I hear, you know, sometimes when I'm speaking to people or people are asking me questions, they're like, oh, I'm grand when it comes to my own pleasure, like I've got that covered, like I know everything, you know. And it's these things that as soon as someone says this, like whether they know or not, I instantly know they don't know. Because once you open this door, you know, and once you kind of step inside this world, you know that you will never know anything, that this is an infinite, boundless, limitless space that you can constantly be expanding into all of the time. And even for me, like I've been in this world for a while now, you know, and I know that there's more, you know. And like so it's yeah, and so, you know, how, because
you've tapped into that, it's actually like Mark Whitwell said. He said yoga or practice of yoga teaches you to be intimate with yourself and intimate with life, and once you can do that, you can be intimate with other people.
Yes.
And actually that brings me on to another question that we had. Have Mark Whitwell's teachings changed your life, and if so, what way? Love heart. Red love heart.
I want to say my instinct, so the first thing that I want to say is no. Mark Whitwell's teachings haven't changed my life. And that's because I don't believe anything that is outside of you can change your life. That I believe that the power to change your life exists only and purely inside of yourself. And I mean, the amount of teachers that I've had in my life, and the amount of places I've practiced and the things that I've done, I mean, have all been in some way life-changing. However, none of these practices matter. I say this with the women's circles, you know, that I do, and I teach them practices. I'm like, this information does not matter, you know, if you don't put it into practice. Because actually, what changes your life is your own truths that arise from your own practice. And that's, that's you showing up in your life every day, choosing to show up on your mat or choosing to show up anywhere in a relationship. You're making that choice. That's your discipline, and to say in any way, shape or form that someone has changed your life is to instantly give that person power.
Brilliant.
Over you.
I think Mark would, because from what I know of Mark and sitting there with him and chatting to him, he would agree with that. I mean, because a big message that I got from him was, you don't need a guru. You don't. We are sharers. We are sharers of each other, of information, and the change happens from within. But you have to study yourself and your own thoughts first. Yeah. And as you said, when you give that power to someone else, you're then maybe become dependent upon them. Like, oh, they told me to do this, so I did it, and
you instantly play into the hierarchy of this as well.
Yes.
And I might actually say something about the guru as well, because I was of that frame of mind that gurus don't exist, let's say, or something, and that they're not real, and that you should never give anyone power and whatnot. And in the last year and almost 2 years now, I have kind of changed my mind about this, and I also may change my mind again in the future, you know. And I think this is something that's very important for me. It's like to be open to change, my mind. I used to be very hard about the fact that, like, you can't follow anyone, and but you're your own guru. You listen to yourself, you follow yourself, and I very much believe in this. But there's certain things that I've experienced now, and it's if you have certain desires, and oftentimes when they say, like, listen to your own guru, most of us don't know how to listen to our own guru. We don't know how to hear the instructions. And so for me, the people outside of us are all teachers. It doesn't matter who they are, whether they're saying they're teachers or not, They're all teachers, and they're in some way directing us and allowing us to hear our inner gurus. And I do have a guru in India who is very dear to my heart and very dear to my own personal practice.
Are they alive?
Yeah. Very dear to my own personal practice. And
well, let's define for two things. Well, one is, so say a guru, okay. What I'm getting, so like a spiritual teacher, someone who passes on knowledge to you, because we all have different knowledge that we can share with each other. What I mean by we don't need a guru is we don't need that person, as in we can't give them all the power, as in we are lost without them. That's what I mean.
Definitely.
So I think when we hear the word guru, we think of someone like Bikram, for example, and like, oh, he's the all-knowing, and we are.
But he's not a guru, actually. So in India, with all of these like tradition, the tantric tradition, you're initiated into very particular energy. When you hear of swamis, these have been initiated in very particular rituals. And so Bikram was never a guru, he set up a brand, and the same way as, Patabi Joyce did, and the same way as Iyengar did, they set up brands, and they came from India, and they were like, ooh, it's the gurus, but at least at the best of my knowledge, they were never initiated into this energy. And in this energy, you can be initiated through your teacher, okay, or you can be initiated by grace, okay, and then it's very much about determining your own. For me, when it comes to everything that I've learned, I'm very much rooted in my own self. And so I will hear everything, and I will be open to everything that everyone is saying. But it's really important that I then take those thoughts and those words and those things that they're saying to me and feel it in my own body, feel it in my own world, and feel how that interacts with me. And so to not take everything as gospel, but to understand what is the truth that arises from my own self, you know? And maybe these people have like dropped seeds in you, but the flower that has arisen from this seed has come from completely from my practice, you know, and from my willingness to participate in that.
So you've grown that flower yourself. That's brilliant, Jen. And another concept you referenced there was the idea of ideas. You know, often people have an idea and we will think, you're wrong, instead of that idea is wrong, or I disagree with you instead of I disagree with that idea. I'm the same way. I mean, I'm constantly changing my mind about things because I learn and I think, okay, I didn't examine that, I get new information. And I think we have to understand that we are ever changing, and that you can't ask yourself next time you encounter someone, do you dislike them or do you dislike that idea, for example?
Well, for me, it's more I'm interested in what compels me towards certain things and repels me from others. And for me, this is how I engage with these. You know, if I find myself reactive to something, I don't sit there and stay reactive. I go, just got really reactive right there, you know. And then it's like, okay, and then I dig into this. Okay, like what was it about this that triggered me? And then I go into this like it's contemplation, you know, these states that you allow yourself to go into, and what you discover is just a little bit of about yourself. You know, you discover again, it's like your likes and dislikes, your beliefs that form your opinion of the world. And yeah, so for me, it's more about, you know, I never discard anyone's opinion or anyone's belief, because if they're saying it at this moment in time, right now, this is what is true for them. And for me, it's like, okay, thank you. And for some reason, I had to hear this, and so now I choose how I engage in this. You know, do I stay contracted and resistant and defiant? You know, because for me this is judgment. You know, and as soon as I move into the space of where I'm judging something, and judgment I think is really important, because when you judge and when you make criticism of others or even of yourself, you're discovering, you know, these are little things that you're using to discover what's alive in you right now. But also to recognize that as soon as you make a judgment, if you stay in the space of judgment, you are instantly living into this hierarchy of, well, I know better than them. And not only that, I know more than them. And not only that, like, what I believe is more important than what they believe.
Completely. I've had criticism, and in the past I'd be like, you haters, you know, I'll show you. And what I realized was that's the destructive way of thinking. Instead, if I ever get criticism, which I very rarely do, but if I do, the thing is, your family will never criticize you.
Oh, right? They will.
Well, mine don't. my, you know, they'll give you like, well, mine don't, but like I'm saying, your friends will tell you what you want to hear, right? Let's say your friends tell you what you want to hear, but the people that tell you what you don't want to hear, that you need to listen to that, because especially if like, okay, occasionally you'll get like someone who's just a nutter, fair enough, whatever, they'll say something because maybe that's not fair, maybe saying nutter, but like someone has stuff going on in their life, and you should probably, it's wise to think, okay, well, we don't know what's going on in their life, and maybe they're projected onto me, so I'm gonna let that one slide. But if more than one person tells you the same thing, I'm talking about myself now, it's a good idea to say, right, maybe I should look at that and address what I could do differently there. Because otherwise, as you said, you have this hierarchy of, no, my ideas, but my opinion is more important than your opinion, and you don't really learn. Okay.
And you're essentially armoring around yourself. You know, you're fortifying what your idea of yourself is. And this is detrimental, because this fortifying and this armor keeps us away from the recognition of the great self, let's say, which is that connection, that you are always in connection to the divine, the same way you are always in connection to the divine, you know. And you know, when we choose to do this, we're instantly creating and breathing into that separation that really drives all life, you know. So
nice, Jen. All right, if you could only do yoga for 5 minutes every day, what would you do?
Oh God,
Double question mark.
I'd die. I can only do 5 minutes a day. Oh my God. And sometimes I say like, oh, I only have 20 minutes here. And then I get on my mat and I start practicing, and I'm just suddenly like, everything that I have to do doesn't matter anymore. And I'm just like 2 hours later, I'm just like, like bliss, you know? Okay, for 5 minutes. I mean, sorry, was that a yoga practice or just any practice? Yoga practice. If I only had 5 minutes, I would probably do sun salutations. Yeah. And just do however many I could, you know, choose either 6 or 12 sets of sun salutations, moving with the body, breathing with the body, you know. I always say this in my yoga classes, you know, that what like the purpose of sun salutations is to allow yourself to move into a state of no mind, you know. A lot of us think that it's just about, you know, warming the body up and whatnot, and we do this kind of these real like kind of crazy like, you know, jumping back forward and jumping over here and to go, you know, like breathing like this, you know. But actually it's to find, you know, this the beautiful space where the breath is marrying the mind and the body together, you know, where the body is moving repetitively and the breath is moving rhythmically, and in that sense then the mind moves into this space of being hypnotized or entranced, you know. And it's a simple and very powerful practice, you know, to kind of call yourself into attention and kind of into that connection quickly, you know. Like I was saying to you earlier, you know, when we talk about spirituality as well, like a lot of us, I keep hearing like a lot of people talking about the mind and the heart as these two separate things, where it's almost like, oh, I'm making a decision from my mind now, and now I'm making a decision from my heart. And for me, and even the tantrikas say this, it's like your mind has arisen from your heart, you know. And actually, even like as a baby, the fetus, the heart actually forms at the very top of the spine around the crown of the head, and well, not around the crown of the head actually, because the way the cells move, then essentially the head begins to kind of form and tilt, and the heart falls from, let's say, the space of the mind to the heart, and the head curls in like this, you know. So these are all, you know, connected, and like on the kind of celestial dance floor where the heart and mind, you know, move together, what is the thing that is holding that together? You know, it's the breath that's counting like 1, 2, 3, 1.
Actually, and I know this geezer quite well. So a great question, by the way. And what you're saying there is great, but if that doesn't resonate with him for some reason, a simple thing is, James, is that like, you know, the movement is a reminder to breathe. That's what I find. You teach people that salutations, they're breathing. You ask someone to lift their hands in the air, they'll automatically breathe in, right? If they've done a little bit of yoga. But then once they're still in, like, say, Warrior 2, they'll often hold their breath. So it's a great way to keep the rhythm, as you were saying, of breathing. Nice page, thank you. And another spam message. Okay, last question from me, as in from the peeps. Go into great detail about what exactly a yoni circle is, double kiss, and quite a few flower emojis. A
women's circle.
A yoni circle.
A yoni circle.
Yeah.
Okay, like a women's circle where we talk about yonis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a great detail. I think this might be kind of a joke, but
it's a great detail. Well, everyone arrives, and we do a name check, a register at the door, and
I'm sure you can't, because it has some of it has to be confidential.
Definitely, I would. I mean, you can.
You can say, like, you've been interviewed by police, just no comment, you know.
Come to the circle.
Boom, there you go. Come to the circle. There's your answer.
No, I mean, it'd be very nice. I would like to talk a little bit about what we do, because I think it's nice for, you know, even women who are curious to hear what happens. I mean, this is very much just opening space to allow the women to connect deeply to themselves, you know. We don't get a chance to do that all of the time. And with a very specific focus around, you know, moving into this, like your feminine nature, into connecting to your womb space, like to begin to consider things like sensuality and sexuality and how they show up in your life, you know. And I think unless space is made in your life to kind of consider these things, we don't do it ourselves, you know.
So anyone can go, it doesn't matter who you are, you're allowed to go.
Yes, and also as well, like you can choose to participate as much or as little as you want. You know, that if you're uncomfortable at any point, I always say this, like it's like you're free to kind of move in and out of this space, you know. It's like to stay in the room, you know, but to participate or not. And the stuff that we do, I mean, it's very light. It's not, you know, it's about connection, and it's about, you know, breathing particular ways, but just more so opening yourself up to ideas. And it's like allowing yourself to expand the world that you live in and that you think exists, you know. It's like if you only live in Ireland, you don't know what the outside world looks like, you know. And when you go traveling, the people who have traveled know this, where they're kind of like, whoa, they come back with all of these new experiences. And this is what I say when it comes to things like having a sexual mentor. It's like we don't have this, so therefore what defines our world around sex stays that way unless we're willing to open up the conversation about it. And this is just simply space for this, you know.
Okay, brilliant. Jen, that's my questions. Now your turn.
Okay. Excuse me. Oh, how do we work Instagram, Jabers? I'm like...
It's actually quite difficult, Instagram, when you're first starting to get used to it.
Yeah.
In my 300-hour teacher training with Bryce, there was every day they would do like an hour on Instagram, how to use it. And I was amazed at how many people didn't know how to use Instagram. I
know. Yeah, it's I'm still learning, I think. I'm trying to figure it out. There's loads of questions in this. Okay.
Do you want me to read them?
So there's ideas and techniques for connecting with a partner spiritually, energetically, before, during and after sex to deepen the experience and connection for both.
Kind of like foreplay ideas.
So yeah, this is also though as well, like spiritually and energetically they're talking about. So, okay, maybe we could describe this like before, during and after sex. So
have a bath.
Before you love your bath. Well, you're a Pisces baby. You're all water.
Oh right, there you go.
Okay, so before intimacy, I would say it's so important to create a space where you are just purely together, you know. Like they say, trust is made up of the smallest moments, you know. So taking time, whether it's, you know, whoever it is in the partnership, you know, to prepare the bed space, like to prepare the space where you're going to be, you know, maybe light some candles, put on some incense, and also as well to kind of create a place where the senses can become fully alive, you know. Our world is defined by our senses and how, you know, we choose to participate in the kind of sensory experience. And they also as well are the kind of the tools, I want to say, that defines our safety as well. And so it's really important to create like this safe space that's held, where there's not going to be distractions or anything like this. You know, you can call it a love appointment if you want, you know, to create these times, you know. We have so many other appointments in our lives, like we have to do this, we do that, you know, to create time to have a love appointment. And then to just sit and connect with each other, you know, to, as I said to you, to sit, you know, cross-legged, you know, in front of each other, or whatever position is comfortable, even just to lie down together, but to be just in a space where you're only connecting with your eyes first, you know, where you start to feel like when you do this, your breath naturally starts to sink, you know, and then the breath, you know, moves like this, and then your energies start to communicate, you know, between each other, like this little fizzling between you both. And you can even do like specific practices where you are actually breathing together, where you're consciously breathing, like inhaling and exhaling, and it's the same rhythm. And there's also really nice exercises that you can do where, you know, you're kind of like moving energy between you. Give me your hands here because we have the camera Can we see this?
Yeah.
Okay, just relax your elbows here a little bit. Bend your elbows. Bend them.
Okay,
bend them. Yeah, hold my hands.
Yeah.
Now, and actually, a really nice way to hold hands is the man, or the one in the masculine kind of energy. His hands are up, and then the woman, her hands, so the thumb slides in between the index and middle finger and slides into the palms of the hands.
Yeah, I'll get
like
in this
this.
camera. Go in.
Okay, yeah, you got that?
Yeah.
Okay, and then from here you kind of want to move in a circle. So hold on a second. I'm going to show you from the woman's side first. You'll start from your sacral area. You'll move towards mine, and then up my body, up towards my heart. And then we move back to your heart and down the body to your sacral area, yeah? So when this is, so it's like just like
Keep
a little
going in a
circle like
circle, yeah?
this.
All
Yeah.
right, cool.
And so now when we're breathing, I'm going to breathe like this. I'm going to inhale as you come in. Like that. And then exhale as I move towards you. Inhale, I receive you. Exhale, I give myself to you. And you're doing the same thing. When I'm inhaling, you're exhaling. Exhale.
Oh, I'm exhaling.
You're exhale. Yeah, so you're exhaling, you're giving to me like this. And now you're receiving. Inhale. Very nice.
I get you. Yeah.
And so here it's like this thing now, we're making a circle, you know, very simple and very, very powerful. You can do this.
And you might feel a bit, little disclaimer, just because you might feel a bit silly doing this the first time. You might do. I'm saying,
of course,
and have a bit of a laugh at it. Like,
it's
just a bit funny, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's about curiosity. It's about playfulness.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you don't have to be here being fucking serious. Like, oh, I've got the breathing wrong. You know, it's like, but definitely it's about going slow. You know, actually, I might say something about this in terms of like, I was speaking to you a little bit about like the developmental stages of arousal. Yeah, that we go through in our life. And so, this is a part of this, because just as we have these developmental stages as we move through when we're growing, we also have them in terms of like the anatomy of arousal, let's say. And when we're young, we have what's known as our erotic innocence, okay? And so this is like when we're kids, where our sexual pleasure is very much just for us, okay? And I mean, kids, if anyone knows, young kids, they explore themselves, they explore their sensations, their sexuality and everything like this, but it's just theirs, okay? When they become older, they move into sexual activation, which is when you start moving in towards your adolescence, and now suddenly men are producing semen, women are menstruating, and there's this kind of sexual activation in terms of hormones, exploding through your body. And so now your sexuality is very much explored in relationship to your peers, okay? It's so interesting. For example, like imagine if you had a 16-year-old daughter, okay? This is also where we start to learn shame and guilt and, behavioral patterns, these things that we pick up and we keep for the rest of our lives if we're not looking at them. Imagine you had a 16-year-old daughter who came downstairs in a little mini skirt, a boob tube, wearing lipstick, and her hair is straight, and she's telling you she's going into town. You wouldn't be like, oh, hello there. This is a very healthy part of your erotic activation and exploration, and this is a healthy part of your developmental stage of life. Have a great time. You'd be like, get up those bloody stairs. You're not going out in that short skirt.
Throwing holy water on her.
Yeah.
Sinner.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you would. Yeah. I would.
And so
reaction.
now we start to learn shame. We start to learn like this thing around, like we're starting to determine what's safe, what's not safe. And we develop these fears around our sexuality, around expression of our sexuality. And so then we move into the next stage, which is erotic exploration. This is the part where actually we really shut down. This is the part where we start to figure out like, what do we like? What do we not like? Maybe we explore like what it's like to, there's not really any age for this, but this is more around, in your, let's say 20s for the sake of saying an age. And you're supposed to do this when you're young, okay? To see like, what does it feel like to kiss a girl? What does it feel like to have a threesome? What does it feel like to make love in nature? All of these things. This is about exploring yourself, your likes, your dislikes. And this also determines, who you are as a person, and also because of the world that we live in, this is very much shut down. We're like in a kind of a single relationship from quite early on. And oftentimes, you know, we're human. We all have these desires, you know, even if you're in connection with somebody, you may find yourself attracted to other people, you know, but there's this barrier then around we can't explore this, you know. And this is, it's supposed to happen when you're young, because we have this ageism as well. Imagine, you know, a 60-year-old man is now suddenly going to a kink club. We're like, ooh, he's a pervert, you know. We have this ageism, and I think that's also wrong as well, because I think pleasure is for all ages, and actually even this scale, even though we're talking about timelines here, you can kind of move between all of them. And so this is like where you start to explore things like kink clubs and BDSM and all of these things, and you start to kind of widen your sexual appetite. This is where creativity comes in, because you're exploring things, you know, in relationship to others, you know, and you're sourcing ideas. And I think this is like the world that I've very much been in the last number of years, and it's so enjoyable. Like, it's terrifying and scary, but I think for me it's also been so necessary to really allow myself to express what it is that I want, what it is that I don't want, and not in relationship to my beliefs, but in relationship to who I am in this moment, you know. And then we move into the next stage. There's a certain point in your life then, and a lot of people are experiencing this right now, even in relationship to people, in relationship to their partners, where they suddenly start to say, there has to be something more. Okay, and once you have this kind of inkling of a question, then you know you're in the next stage. And the next stage now is about erotic expansion. And this is when you start to move into the state of, okay, how do we slow down? What does it look like, you know, to be in a deep connection with each other? How do we do that? How do we navigate this territory? And so now you begin to slow everything down. It becomes very exploratory, yes, but there's also generally a kind of an aspect to move towards what we're calling spirituality now as well in sex, you know, and a very beautiful space to be in. And then after this state, then we have what's called erotic wisdom, you know. And so now once you've experienced all of these things, you know, it's like now you can start to take this erotic wisdom that is born in and of yourself. This is when you suddenly can move into states of, like, you know, as I said, like having sex with life, you know, like looking at a sunset and finding that the sun is penetrating, deeply penetrating and warmly nourishing every single part of your being, and that you find your skin and pores are open and breathing and alive with this sensation, you know, like how you like when you're moving in nature and you're, you know, even in the summertime and the grass is long and you can feel the grass like tickling your ankles, like to be so sensitive and attuned to yourself like this, where it's pleasurable. And this is the friction, you know, like we need it. It's the friction that like articulates the skin of life, you know, and how that touches you, you know, it's just powerful. This is when these moments, you know, this is when life really turns into poetry, you know. And like you even think about people like Michelangelo and Leonardo da Vinci, like they, like some of the greatest are like the two probably most famous and greatest artists of all of art, all of their time, you know. They left behind the largest body of unfinished work, more than anybody else. And this is like a real call to, you know, it's not about the finished product or the end goal, it's about the expression and the exploration in between. And you can take this into your sexual life as well, you know, that it's not about boom, we did it, let's go. Because nowadays, you know, we're using sex, even with ourselves alone and with our partners, as a sleeping pill, you know. And it's like we do it, go asleep, you know. And there's and I think what I'm finding, I mean, I'm in this world, so people are talking to me about this. What I'm finding is like a yearning for a deeper connection and how to go about all these. That's what all these questions are about. You know, how do I connect deeply, you know? So, well, there's a very long answer now to this, but yeah, sorry, God, here we, but then, so yeah, that's before, geez, I'm only speaking about the before part, but then during, okay, so during sex, let's please speak about this for a moment. This is,
bit of eye contact.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's also about slowing down, and it's about, in Taoism, it's super important that first of all, and not even Taoism, it's just in the kind of energetic exploration, and whether it's tantric or Taoist practices, first of all, the foreplay or whatever, and this is, to prepare the genitals, for to be received, and to give, and that's on both sides, not just the women receiving and the man giving. It's the tumble between the two, and so to find like that the yoni is lubricated and moist and pulsing. It's like she's breathing, and now she's like ready to be ready to be entered, and that the man as well is simultaneously like prepared, and then the talk about arriving at, Taoists, they use this beautiful poetic language, arriving at the jade gate, and we're
what is it? Because I heard of jade eggs. What does jade mean? What's that got to do with anything?
Oh, can we go back to that?
Sorry, yeah,
let's go back to it.
No,
because
let's pose this question.
Yeah. So, but I will answer that because it's very sweet. Again, I love this imagery. It's very poetic and very, it really points towards the art of sex, which is really what we're, moving into, to try and bring that into our world, like an art form. And so, yes, so to arrive at the jade gate and to enter, and it's very important that you're entered very slowly, that the woman is receiving the lingam, and it's like this when you're there with someone who's fully present, this moment alone can be just mind-blowing, where you're like, whoa, and you feel this like huge surge of energy open up through you, and it's just this deep this deep aliveness, like this world that's pouring and tumbling between the two, and then during sex, I mean, as I was saying earlier, like all of us, we have these maps of pleasure on our body, and oftentimes we just get stuck in the same 3, or maybe not more than that, but like same 3 or 4 positions, and also as well the similar thrusting, it's like we have the same rhythm and we keep going at it, and the men think like, I just have to keep pummeling her until she like orgasms, and so it's not even about that. It's about learning, the responses, like women and men, and we have these responses during sexuality to become attuned, become attentive to like looking at her cheeks flush, to seeing goosebumps ride up her breasts, to watch these movements, and that's really the territory of the man. The woman is to be in the space of enjoying, to be allowed the space to fully expand into her own pleasure, and the man is almost like, I wish I could speak about this in terms of all genders. I mean, I don't want to exclude this, but maybe I hope people can hear.
Just let's say when you say men, you're saying masculine energy. When you say women, you're saying feminine energy.
Yeah, exactly. And so that someone is in that receptive and someone is in that giving energy all the time. And so the man is kind of driving and kind of learning like the kind of roadmaps of this pleasure, and like there's different kinds of thrusts that you can do, in Taoism they talk about it like whether it's like slow and penetrating, or slow and deep, or else swift and shallow,
mix it up,
and to mix it up, and also like whether it's going in straight or whether it's slanted, what pressure points in the yoni are you touching, and then the different positions that you can like move into, like in the beginning they say that the it's much and this is, maybe I can say this now because it's super powerful for everyone to hear. In the beginning, you enter in very slowly and very deep, and so you have the kind of slow, deep, like penetrating thrusting action, and this is really, they call
is this question from someone of masculine energy?
Yes. Yeah. And so this is like when the base of the base of the lingam, let's say, so around his kind of pubic bone is in contact with her pubic bone, and that they're really pressed together. There's a compression, it's very tight, and that you're kind of pulsing very slowly into it. And so this is really important right at the beginning, because if you're kind of sliding in and out right from the beginning, the clitoris can become very what's that word, with friction, it can become sore, like sensitive. And also as well, like the the shaft of the penis can become like this as well. So to be inside and to basically be pumping, you know, like this. I hope people, hold on, here you go, like that, okay?
Yeah.
And so they call this like the mound of Venus, actually, okay? This is what they call in Taoism. It's so beautiful. And so that you're pumping. And so this is also as well stimulating the clitoris and the way the clitoris likes to be stimulated. I mean, there's lots of different ways the clitoris likes to be stimulated, but when in terms of penetrative sex, it's like that kind of like deep pulsing. And so here now you're beginning to kind of ignite and again, even lubricate even more the inside of the yoni. And then you move into different ways of thrusting. In the beginning, and for beginners, they generally say like 9 slow pumps, boom, slow, do, 9 times, and then 1 long deep. Out, come all the way out, and then go all the way in, and then you go 9 more times, and then you come all the way out really slow and go all the way in. And so this is like, it's like to get into a rhythm of this.
I'll say that again and go 10.
You were recording it.
I'm joking. Okay, all right.
And so then there's many different ways. I mean, you know, and to also as well get curious about different kinds of posture, like different, it's essentially like you can create like a little, you know, the way people create yoga sequences, you know, you can create, you know, it looks kind of fun to do. You can create like little asanas, let's say, like moving from position to position, like see how do you stay connected and, you know, move from like tabletop to, you know, lying down or to moving like, you know, and so you know, there's generally, they'll say 4 positions, you know, man on top, woman on top, side by side, and whatever way that is, you know, and like connecting with eyes sometimes maybe. And then man from behind. I'm only speaking there here about men and women, but this is masculine and feminine. Yeah. And so and then these are all, you know, how you move, how you thrust is all, you know, to discover and to allow her arousal to open up fully. And this is where it becomes like this, really get curious, explore, you know, get like, don't be afraid to make mistakes. You know, the biggest turn off ever, like that I ever find, is like when someone thinks they know everything, you know, and you're just kind of sitting there going like, so boring. Like when you think you know everything, like you're not open to learning, you know, you're not open to growing because you're sitting there in your little thing going, I know everything.
That's why you've got to really look at facial expressions to see how things are being received.
Yeah.
And
at the end then
cup of tea and a biscuit.
But actually, but even, you know, with as much attention as you arrive, you also leave, you know. And so, and it's really important. This is also as well like creating that safety and also creating that connection for the woman, you know, so that or for the feminine to be held and like to have kind of like a bit of time like for cuddling. And I mean, we all know this, ladies, don't we? Like when they have to go straight away to the bathroom, and it's like, and you know, like you kind of understand because you're just like, okay, I know they have to go to the bathroom and whatnot, but it's like, oh, you know. And I often as well find like sometimes I get like a little bit kind of like when, say for example, if there's been like an exchange of fluids between the body, you know, and then like the guy gets up like to leave and like, you know, try to like, you know, like get tissue or something to clean you up. Like I often find like I find, and this is a personal thing, I'll say myself, you know, other people may have things around feeling sticky or something. I know my friend does, and she doesn't like to feel like that kind of stickiness, but and she kind of gets a little bit sick by it. But I know for me that like when I'm given a tissue to like clean myself up, it's like this feeling of dirtiness, like I'm dirty, and it's not. Like this is like beautiful life force energy, it's vital energy, you know. And even as well, like semen, you know, is like this super sacred fluid, you know, in tantric practice and in Taoism, you know, like in they have like this where, you know, putting semen, you know, women take semen on their face, and it's all to do with like longevity and also, you know, restoring youthfulness and all of this kind of stuff. Like super, like think of semen for a second. Yeah. Think about it.
Yes.
Yeah. Like this has the capacity to create life. It has the nutrients and the vitamins to create something that is absolutely magic. And the body every day is making this, you know, and pulling its kind of best resources from itself, you know, in terms of what you're eating, your lifestyle. So it's pulling all the best sources of itself and kind of creating this incredible fluid, you know, and it's potent. And this actually it leads on to the next question that he's talking about in terms of ejaculation, like the benefits of non-ejaculation.
That can't be good for you.
What?
Not ejaculating.
Oh, this I'll tell you about this now. Like we talk about semen now. So, if you are ejaculating every day, which is what most people do, then the body has to constantly, most men do, means the body is constantly having to pull from these resources, you know, and it's actually very draining for the body. You think about this, like imagine that happening all the time. Generally, this is.
Oh, I mean, sorry, Jen, to interrupt. I mean, like getting to the point where you're going to and then stopping.
Oh, that's okay. Like this is actually what you're trying to do. This is actually where men move into full body orgasm. And maybe I'll just talk about the semen first and then touch on that point sure. because and I'll also touch on the jade egg as well, because this is actually, okay, so jade in Taoism is said to be the semen of the dragon. Yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
And so this is like formed in the earth. Okay. And like the semen of the dragon, released on the earth, and So, and this is said to be like super healing, has very loads of health properties, all about longevity, and really incredible benefits and whatnot. Excuse me. And so, so what we try to do in our practices then is that we try to separate ejaculation from orgasm, you know, because it's very stressful for the body. We actually know this from sportsmen, you know, or sportsmen and women. Like these are athletes who are trying to optimize the health of their body and the performance of their body. And like, I'm sure you've heard this, like the amount of people you've spoken to and the things that you listen to, that like there are, you know, boxers and whatnot out there that say like before a game, they won't have sex for 6 weeks or something like this before the fight, because they're dispensing these very vital nutrients and minerals cheaply. Yeah. I mean, if they had sex the way I know how to have sex, they could, you know, exponentially increase their vitality, you know. And actually very funny, like when I was
corner boxers out there.
When I was but when I was younger, I was dating a guy who was into weightlifting, and it was so funny because I mean, I was in my early 20s, and before a competition we wouldn't be allowed to have sex, and I remember this used to fuel me even more to be kind of like I want to have sex now that I can't. And so for me it was this kind of game of seduction that I very much enjoyed, and I was like, how can I get him to make love with me, like, and for me it was like this, and it's like the teasing, you know, like, and both of us enjoyed it, you know, but then like he'd arrive to the competition, and then I get a message from his coach being like, Jenny,
leave him alone.
Yeah, like, not leave him alone, like, Jenny, like, what have you done? You know, it's like he's not supposed to ejaculate, and or not supposed to have sex. And like for me, I'm just like, but now, I mean, like now, if it would be very different now, you know, and so and so because it's known, you know, that you have less power in your body, that you're not as effective, your system is slower. So imagine if you're doing this daily, which most men are, and they're using it as a way, again, it's a stress release, you know. It's a similar orgasm to the clitoral orgasm that I was speaking about in the last episode, you know, that, you know, we have this kind of, you know, movement towards pleasure. There's this kind of like increase the whole time, then there's a climax, and then there's a very, you know, definite finish where there's a feeling of being tired and like completion, I'm done, you know. But actually when you can start to separate ejaculation from orgasm, and when you start to gain control over ejaculation, then not only can you continue in terms of the sexual intimacy, which women actually very much need, then you can also start to open yourself to much deeper orgasm. So for example, they will say, you know, when I'm talking about thrusting, they will say that like in Taoism, they talk about it's 1,000 thrusts to satisfy a woman, okay? And so someone would listen to that and go, Jesus Christ, 1,000 thrusts. I mean, for the uninitiated, that's very like overwhelming. However, this is probably about half an hour worth of making love, which, you know, when you get to this stage is kind of only the beginning of things, you know. And so they say, like, in, you know, the statistics or whatever, most men are lasting between 5 to 10 minutes before they orgasm, before they ejaculate, and that they'll do like between 50 and 100 pumps. I mean, 100 pumps, but 100 thrusts. But this is nowhere near enough for a woman, you know? And so she's leaving not satisfied, okay? And many women out there are saying, like, even to me, like, you know, I find it very difficult to have orgasms during sex. And this is because we're on a time scale. Like, we literally know, like, I have to be bloody quick here. And so we're here and we're like, you know, like feeling, but then we're also using our imagination and we're trying to get there real quick before they come, you know? And so this is about learning how to control your ejaculation also as well, because as a woman comes closer to climax, she'll start to move her body like much closer, like the thrusting will get deeper, and there'll be this very like incredible, like, I mean, it's almost this energy. I want to say it's agitation, but it's not so much, it's not like agitation, like, you know, but it's like this agitation and this kind of, almost like this sucking, you know, like this, like, and it's really hard for men to resist this, you know. And so if he ejaculates before she comes, and if this is the rule and not the exception, this is known to ruin relationships. Yeah. And so now it's like coming into this space, like, where it's like, okay, well, how do I engage with this more? And how do you engage with this? There's some very simple practices, okay, that you can do. Okay. There's some breath practices that you can do. I'd love to teach men this. Kevin, can we put a call out there, like, because the orgasm workshops that I hold for women, you're like, who are you calling? No, but okay. Hello, Kevin. Hello,
Men of Ireland.
I'm making a call. Men of Ireland. But yeah, the orgasm workshops that I do for women, like, I could also do for men, and for me, I'd be so happy, you know, to be like, let's get into a space together, and like, I'll teach you the breathwork stuff, and but really simple practices for men to start to work with this. And one of the ways that you'll begin, okay, and you can do this anywhere, okay, is that you'll squeeze the sphincter muscles, okay, and this is the internal and external. So you begin to squeeze, like, to feel the contraction. And for men, and please, like, for women, the way I would describe this, they can do these practices as well, but for women, I would describe this a lot differently, okay? So very specifically for men, they squeeze the sphincter muscles, internal, external, okay? And this is happening as you inhale. Now stay there, pause, and you kind of squeeze a little bit harder. And now you keep the hold and you exhale, but you keep the squeeze. Pause. And you do this breath cycle 3 times, 3 complete cycles. Yep. And then the next time you inhale, or the next time you exhale, or whatever, you slowly begin to relax. And then you have to relax for quite a period of time. So it's not now, because you don't want to create a tension here, you know. And so now you relax and soften, and there's a softness around here. And then you can continue this, and you can do this practice anywhere. You can do it sitting at work. You can go, okay, and then another a very beautiful daily practice that you can do is when you're going to the toilet. And so during your when you're urinating, during the stream, okay, you'll hold. So you squeeze. So you try to stop the stream, okay? Yeah. And so you let it kind of go for a little bit, then you stop the stream, and so you're squeezing everything, you stop the stream, then you relax, you let it go again, and then you stop again. And so you'll find like the fluid is just like spurting out when you stop, and some of that, like, you know, in the beginning I'm saying like I know I have a penis or something, but it's like but these things. And then so this is now where you're starting to control your muscles.
Is it good for you to hold your wee in then?
But I'm not saying to hold your wee in, I'm saying for you to stop the stream, so that you're getting used to them. So you're getting used to the muscles. I'm not saying like hold your wee in now for another 2 hours and then start again, you know. I'm saying like you're already going, you know, you're like midstream, stop,
Jesus,
start again, stop,
Women can
start
do that.
again.
I don't know, men.
It's possible for men, and this is actually
Yeah.
some of the beginnings that, like, some of the beginning practices that you teach men in order to start to control their ejaculation. So now they take ownership of when they're ejaculating and when they're not. This is the first step,
Okay.
you know, because otherwise you're not in control. You're kind of just riding the waves, like how they're coming to you, and it's kind of like you don't have any control. You can't stop it. Once it's started, you know, once that climax is coming, you have no way to come back down again, you know. And so these are practices you can do on your own. And then when you become comfortable stopping this, you can start to explore it with a partner. And so now you're making love, and also even this, it's like to be open for the person who's receiving the man in this way, to give them space, you know. So basically this becomes all about them for a moment in time, which is okay, you know. And so it's to be like, okay, so you're making love, and then you're constantly in communication about what your kind of level of pleasure is, and you try not to go over 6 or 7, let's say, on your count. I would definitely say more so 6 when you're 5 or 6 maybe when you're starting, because once you get to like 8 or 9, it's very difficult to control then when you don't have the control in place. And so then you kind of, every time you kind of get to 6, then you'll pull back, you know. And you can also do some breathing exercises. I mean, I teach this in my yoga classes as well. It's the same exercises. And so now you're learning to pull this energy through the body, okay? And it starts to move, you know, in kind of up, let's say, you know, in towards, like, nourishing the brain and the spine and whatnot. And the same with women, as they learn to, like, draw their energy up, like the upsuck, you know. It's like this, they learn to move up towards orgasm, as like to the deeper orgasms. And
Jen, I really, really need to go for a wee. I actually really do.
okay, go.
Can you continue talking?
Oh yeah.
I'm like talking to that camera.
Okay, yeah.
Is that all right?
Okay, of course.
I so badly need to.
This
I know
is
this
so
is
funny.
like. I know this
you
is
should
like.
practice this now. It's a sign.
I've been holding this.
You've been drinking too much tea.
I've been
Kev.
drinking too much tea. I've been holding this for about 20 minutes, and I was like, right, okay. And then you start talking about wee. I was like, the one thing to talk about.
So you're like, now I really need to wee.
This is quite embarrassing, but
But no,
this
it's
is
not
real. This is real
embarrassing.
life.
It is real
Men
life.
we and women we. All people we. Okay.
Yeah. So
what-
where was I saying?
You were
again?
talking about wee retention.
Wee retention. Yeah.
Let me remember.
So-
Are you good to keep talking?
Yeah, I can keep talking. Yeah.
Go on, keep going. Next question.
What's the? Oh yeah, the next question.
Yeah. Keep going.
Oh, there's a musical sound in my ear.
Oh, that was the thing. That's okay.
Oh, okay.
Carry on.
Okay, where? Okay, what's the next question, guys? Sorry, guys. So, towards energy. Okay. How to work on building a more masculine energy. Does this help release/grow a partner's feminine energy, or is this a wrong way to think about it? Okay. So for me, what I have found in my life, and also what people talk when they're talking about conscious relating, okay, and conscious relationships, is that in the beginning, and let's stay on the subject of men, since this is from a man. So in the beginning, men will find themselves in relationship with women who are kind of existing in certain kind of archetypes, whether they're the mother, whether they're the lover, the seductress, or the goddess even. So these particular archetypes. But in these archetypes, he'll find himself almost being repelled away, so that there's some kind of issue where it's just not completely working, that he almost feels like he's moving away from this. At this point in time, it's an indication to step away and do your own work. This is where men's circles are super, super important, where men are allowed to come together and be in the space where they're allowed to be men. You know, they talk about, when it comes to defining like your masculine edge, that expressing anger is often a huge issue for men, because maybe they've had relationships of masculine figures in their lives, or even feminine figures in their lives, where they have experienced anger and they've said, oh Jesus, and they're so repelled by this, and also frightened that they're saying, God, I'll never act like this. And when you deny yourself this emotion, it's so important, this, you're denying and cutting yourself off from a huge aspect of what it means to be human. And so in these spaces with other men, you can explore a whole range of emotions where you don't have to be constantly the man, where you don't have to be strong, where you're allowed to express your vulnerability in relationship to each other. And this is super powerful, to have other men as role models that can that you can express. There's your bum in front of the camera there, Kev. To have men as other role models in your life where you can express and see a man expressing their emotions, their full range of emotions, anger to sadness, pain and grief to happiness and joy. You're giving permission, or you're given the permission to be that in yourself. Okay.
What was the question?
So the question was actually to do with how to work on building more masculine energy, and does this help release or grow a partner's feminine energy? And so I'm just talking about the man side of things first, and like talking about like going to men's circles and stuff like this, because this is how you anchor into your own self, your own masculinity. And I have a very sometimes I have a very a little bit of a reaction to trying to separate, our masculine and our feminine, because for me, even as I'm existing here as a woman, my masculine is very much present, even when I'm being like completely erotic and sensual myself, and I feel this beautiful Shakti energy moving and kind of waving itself through me. I feel my masculine there all of the time, supporting and creating a space for that energy to move through. And so even as well for the man, to allow to feel the exact same thing, and really beautiful. Like for me, I feel like you do this work, release and grow your partner's feminine energy. She, goes and does the work to move into connection towards herself, to understand her body, her likes, her dislikes, to connect with her rhythm and her cycle. And then you come together and then you learn to explore this with each other. I think to have like a thought in your mind where I'm doing this, and then this will also this will stimulate her to do her work is an incorrect view, because you can't force anyone to change, and that's something that's really important when you start to explore this kind of world with someone, that your partner is also as interested in exploring this world with you, and that it's not something you're forcing on them, because that's never something that's going to last, because they're going to feel kind of coerced into it. It's something that you arrive at for your own self,
That's a good question.
Yeah. And then I had this amazing question. I'm going to go into this other...
I don't know how you feel about this, Jem, but like, I think also, how do you feel... Oh, actually, no, I won't say it. Right, forget it. Keep going.
I want to know.
No, keep going.
Okay. Oh, wow. Oh, I love this question. Okay. Also about masturbation. How many men are unable to masturbate without porn and have lost all contact to their actual sensuality? It's huge. Is that something you could go into? Like how to reconnect to your sensual side, which is maybe so uncomfortable for men. Oh, it's so beautiful, isn't it? Because isn't it? And this is what I'm saying about men learning how to receive. Yeah, because we have this kind of, let's stereotype for a moment, but this view of men in the world, like where they have to be strong and hard, like their bodies and all this kind of stuff, and that if they're not, they're somehow less masculine, and my God, like you know, I was talking about Michelangelo and Da Vinci earlier, like think about William Blake or Yeats, like any of the men, the artists in the world that are existing right now and have existed through all time. You know, just as much as women understand sensuality and the pleasures of life, men do as well. Men have a powerful way of witnessing beauty, you know, of kind of pulling that out in somebody else, you know. And this is the gift, you know, that you can give your partner, actually, you know, when you allow yourself to fully express, you know, everything in your heart, like get language around it, talk to your partner, you know, like she is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, you know, and you don't forget that, you know, you keep going back to that daily, like to tell. And even for the woman, oh my goodness, so important for the woman to say to the man, do you know how beautiful you are? You are gorgeous, you know? Like, it's so funny. We kind of have these things where we can call a woman beautiful, but we call a man sexy, or we call a man like handsome or something like this, you know? These interesting kind of things. Drop all of those barriers, like, and say, like, do you know how beautiful you are? Describe their face, touch them, you know? And for the men to learn to receive this, you know? To learn to receive the love that they're getting from someone, to receive and it's this softness, to allow themselves to be penetrated. You know, actually, you know, they often say, like, when a man is penetrated himself, he understands more and is more respectful to what a woman goes through, in terms of the penetration, you know, like the vulnerability, the trust that is needed.
When a man is penetrated in which way?
Like in anally.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like anally, you know.
Right.
And I'm not talking about like same sex here. Like, I'm, you know, partners can do this together, like men and women in heterosexual relationships. Like, get a dildo, use your fingers, you know, and explore, you know. And again, I mean, obviously, when you're comfortable and whatnot, like, I mean, you're not just gonna be like, we have to do this, you know. You have to learn how to receive, you know. It's like to kind of to be open to this, you know. So to be open to exploring. So this is that very much about the receptiveness of the man, you know. And in that sense, then, to allow himself to receive the pleasures of life, like to engage in sensual acts, like with himself, you know, to do the things that kind of that light him up. I mean, it's different for everyone, you know. Some men love listening to music, like, and kind of touches their skin the same way just as women do, you know, or poetry, you know, or the smells, you know. There's this very beautiful thing you can do with your partner where you, like, it's awakening the senses, you know, and you get things like, you know, you can blindfold each other if you want. It's very beautiful to blindfold each other, but you blindfold each other and, like, you can get like fruit and oils, like essential oils, and you can even like print out, like, or get little like lines like poetry. You can play music, and like in this state, like you teach him how to receive, like, so to receive different types of touch, you know, and then to move into maybe like feeding him, and then to move into, like, you know, him like smelling things, and like suddenly the senses become alive, you know, and it's just like, woo, like the whole, like, it really, like imagine what's happening when all the senses become alive, you know, the brain is active, you know, the body is active, and energy is moving, you know. So
yeah, that's a big one. Porn will rock your brain.
Porn. And then, you know, yeah, and maybe I mentioned this in the last one, but, you know, when it comes to porn, like the reason men are attracted to porn is because they're looking at someone, a woman more than likely, let's say, who is fully engaged in the act of in the sexual act. Yes. So they're showing all the signs, like they're kind of like moving, you know, they're like, ooh, and they're like using their sounds, the sounds of their voices, like, oh yes, and they're even kind of screaming like, fuck me, you know. and so all of these kind of like very obvious signs, you know. Yeah. And this is, you know, going back to this space of like going towards like men who maybe have this is one of the biggest fears for men, is that they're somehow going to move into this state of being a predator, you know. And so when they are when a woman is fully engaged and fully alive, and he can see that she's actually turned on, you know, then he knows that he's in an act of pleasure and not in an act of violence, you know. And so, and now he feels safe to be exactly himself in this. And so porn is very addictive for this, because it gives you that. It gives you that. And also it's at the end of a screen, you know. You don't also as well have the things of like the performance issues, like, you know, issues around humiliation, self-confidence, which, you know, we talk about women having shame around sex, men have it just as much as us. Self-confidence, men have it. It's just like all of these things, I mean, they're not gender specific, they're universal. And so and I think I kind of maybe touched on this earlier, but, you know, men who are unable to masturbate without porn, this is simply because this has become a habit, you know, a habit that is more than likely an addiction. And you know it's an addiction when I've met some men as well, you know, who feel that maybe they're a sex addict and there's somewhat of a shame or a fear around this. And, you know, sometimes people just have a very high sex drive. I used to have I used to have like a wild libido. Like it was just like I wanted to make love all the time, like all day, every day. Like this is like in my early 20s and whatnot. Like, and I was just like, it was like around the clock. Like I was like, I want to go again, you know. And sometimes men just have that similar appetite as well. You know, something that is defined as an addiction is that when you're, you know, in this kind of consuming act, which at the end of it doesn't leave you feeling fulfilled. You actually feel guilty, you know. And this is not just around sex, you know, it's around food as well, like where you're kind of consuming, and it's to kind of fill a void more than to enjoy yourself, you know. It's less about pleasure and more about trying to fill yourself with something.
I think that's why having a yoga practice is so important, because it's discipline, developing discipline to be like, okay, I don't want instant pleasure because I know that's going to lead to suffering. Instead, I'm going to get on my mat and I'm going to do what's uncomfortable because I know in the end I'll be stronger from that. And that's I think that, I mean, most fellas go through the whole pornography thing, and I mean, there's no remedy for it, but I think a big thing.
Well, actually, there is a remedy for it.
There's no like. Sorry, let me rephrase that. There's no like obvious remedy for it, like, I'll just stop. But I think a big thing is to you got testosterone in your body, a lot of it, depending, men of different levels. You need to use it. I would say, go down the gym, lift some weights, or do some hard yoga, some physical, strenuous stuff. And also I think this is, I mean, obviously these are questions for you, but my opinion just as a fella is, you know, I don't know, I'm sure there's some women that like to be picked up, for example, like start wrestling, start some jiu-jitsu, learn how to use your body. So, you know, you and it's hard to say what is masculine traits or not, but I think to be strong in your body and your mind, it all goes together. To do things that you don't want to do every day, and you feel better about yourself. You're like, shit, I didn't want to do that, but I did it anyway. And when you do that every day, you think about yourself differently, as opposed to just a pathetic slob looking at a computer screen wanking. Like, that is a cycle you come into, and I think that you... But also, Kevin, like, even using those words like a pathetic slob, like, this is like the image that we give, and this is also feeding into the man's the man's image of himself, like, where he thinks he's useless, and he's in essence lost to the addiction of it. But and this is what addiction is. But, you know? Sometimes, maybe though, shouldn't we be like kind of tough with ourselves in a way to be like, I'm better than this. I know I can do better than this, and I've become this person that's, yeah, like I said, you know, a slob who's addicted to this screen, and I know I can be better at this, so I should be.
But yeah, but for me though, it's I don't like to use the word, and I also would like to call you up on it in terms of when you're saying like, I'm a slob watching a computer screen, because this is ultimately like, an addiction is someone who's suffering greatly.
Oh yeah, no, know? I'm talking about I've been that slob.
Yeah, no, but don't call yourself a slob, because this is it's not about being a slob. It's like, this is, you know, like, think about this, as kids, you know, we were full of confidence, you know, but somewhere along the way we learnt insecurity. We learned it. And so now it's about recognizing like, well, what was I innately born with? You know, what was I naturally given? And where along the way did I learn that I'm not good enough?
Yeah.
And then when you come in contact with that, it's not about breathing into a story where you're now going, oh, I had this experience and, you know, like this is why I'm not good enough. And now you become a victim of your own story. It's not about that. Now it's about recognizing it and then beginning the process of reorientation. And when we use words like this, like it's only breathing life and breathing, creating or fortifying the thought of I'm not enough. And when we have these thoughts, this is what creates, we all know this, like our thoughts create a reality. You know, we're not the only ones saying this in this day and age, everyone is saying this. And so if we have these thoughts, I'm not good enough, then the choices we make create that reality where that is alive in us. And so for me, it's not about when someone has this addiction and they realize, okay, I have an addiction to porn, you know, and an addiction, everybody, is something that you can't stop. Okay. I have an addiction to coffee, you know, I can't, and Jesus, I don't want to drink it. It doesn't make me feel good. Actually, you know, I know it doesn't make me feel good. I'll have like 2 or 3 sips and I'll be like, it doesn't feel good in my body. But actually I can stop for a day or two. But in the last couple of weeks, I've been trying to give it up and I just haven't been giving it up. I mean, this is also as well, like you need like 80% willpower, you know, it's like 20, like it's like the or not so much, actually I would say it's different, maybe like 20% or like 80% is like the decision you make in your mind just to not do it again, and 20% is the willpower to drive it. Or maybe not willpower, maybe we could talk about willingness to show up for yourself in that regard every day. And it's the same thing with the porn addiction, where you just have to say, okay, and this is with the strength of the mental world, you know, I'm going to stop. And not only this, like what they say in this when we work, like I've worked with men who have porn addiction, and when I've worked with them, like I literally say, like, now, you know, you there's no watching porn anymore. And I mean, they generally arrive because they don't want this, you know. And also as well, they also have lots of issues with premature ejaculation or
impotency.
Yeah. Thank you. I forgot the word. And they find themselves not being able to exist in relationship in real life, actually. And so they come to me because they have this issue, and basically we would stop, you know, there'd be no porn now, and also they would commit to a certain length of days where they also would not be masturbating at all.
Yeah.
But doing different practices, like generally, if they're coming to me, like they'll generally have some kind of a yoga practice, but it's also very specific to the person, the individual, you know.
Yeah, I suppose maybe it's a case of different things work for different people, different language works. I don't know. I know when I was 26 and my dad sat me down and said, you know, you've really let yourself go. I was shocked. It hurt me so much that I was like, I've become someone that I never wanted to become, and because he said it to me, it was shocking, because normally my dad's so quiet, you know, he never say something like that really. But he said, you know, you've put on a lot of weight and you don't seem yourself. And I thought, fuck, he's right. I've really let myself go. I've become, okay, you maybe don't like the word, but I like the word slob. It worked for me. I was a slob. I eat Nando's every night. Basically, I go between Nando's, Domino's, and curry. And then I just discovered pornography. I'm like, oh my God, look at this. I was back in the day when, you know, I wouldn't have been dial-up, but it was, I just had I didn't even think I just got a laptop, but you're like, oh my God, look at this. I'm overwhelmed with stimuli. But it took a tough conversation for me to be like, you're right. This is not, I'm better than this. Yeah. And I've lost who I was when I was 20, and I can get that back. And that essentially haunted me. So every morning when I get up, like I never miss a day working out. I mean, like or doing yoga. I kind of combine the two, and and because I have that thing in me with like I don't want to feel that way again, you know. And I like who I am now. I'm proud of myself. So yes, okay, I know what you're saying about the word slob can be, perhaps some people it's a bit harsh, a bit offensive, but for me it works for me, and it might work for other people. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Look how many questions you got.
I know.
Oh my God.
That's what I'm like, Jesus.
Now, see, the thing is, Jen, we've only got really 10 more minutes because I got to go. Well, I haven't got to, but I'm going for Christmas lunch. I'm
maybe I can pick and choose some of these then, because some of these were already answered. Like,
yeah, because there will be some. What we can do then, we can do a Valentine's special in February. But it's only 6 weeks away.
Goodness.
Exactly. And when any ones we don't answer now, or I'll say you don't answer now, you can do for Valentine's.
Oh my God.
Just saying.
I have an idea, but maybe I could speak to you after the show about it.
You do know. Well, yeah, okay, after's good.
Yeah, could we do like a live one, and maybe people can come? I don't know how people would feel about that, but then we could actually do practices. I mean, nothing crazy, but like practices with people in the moment.
Yeah. Okay, absolutely, yeah.
Let's see how people feel about that. Let's ask them to like let us know.
Yeah, somehow. Yeah, let us know. Yeah, messages or whatever.
Send us like
Valentine's Day special live. With practices.
Oh my God. And everyone gets little sweethearts, you know, those sweets.
yeah. The little ones that like say I love you and stuff.
Yeah. You're a sweetheart. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, because when you've got 10 more minutes, I've got to go and eat me some Christmas lunch.
I know, yeah. We could just talk all day. This is the problem, Kevin.
I know.
Okay. So
pick some juicy ones.
Yeah, some of these questions are, okay. Getting comfortable. This is from a woman. Getting comfortable with your naked body, especially if you have scars, etc. This is so important, not just for women, you know, also for men, you know, but to learn. And I kind of say this quite a bit actually in the other podcasts as well. It's like, you know, really, you know, coming into contact with yourself and redefining for your own self what, you know, these words like sexy is, you know, like to touch yourself and to engage with your body in a way where you're feeding it with love and attention and nurturing, and to go to the places that you don't like, you know, and to stay there for a moment in time. I mean, I've said this in other episodes, like, but when I was doing these things, like I was doing a practice and I've shared these practices in the orgasm workshop that I've done, and there will be more coming next year because I've had a huge thing being like, when are they on again? But to explore yourself, like by touching and feeling your body, you know, I'd put on music and I would literally be in front of a mirror in my underwear and I would dance for myself, you know, and I would watch myself and I would feel myself like being really uncomfortable. I would watch myself watching my body and the parts of my body that I wasn't happy with, and I'd be like, oh my God, I look so fat here. When I do this, I'd look like this. And I'd observe the commentary in my head, not attaching to the story, but just observing it. So I really started to notice, you know, who am I and what do I really feel and think about myself? And then you start to basically reprogram yourself, you know, that when you touch yourself, like I remember I used to be around like my abdomen, you know, and I would literally like touch myself and I would grab my skin, you know, like I would literally grab it until like the flesh was like puckering between my fingers, and I'd like twist and hold myself, like, and I'd like feel it until that became a sensual feeling for me. And I'd be like, oh, it feels good to hold onto my body, you know, like this, to feel the flesh like puckering beneath me, like to feel the flesh, like the fat, let's say, like squeeze, you know. And you know, men do this, like men would touch me and be like, I love your body, and for me in my head I'd be like, oh God, I feel so fat today, you know. It's like this. And so for in those moments when I'm not accepting my body, I'm not receiving the pleasure that they're like really taking from me, you know, like they're like to take the pleasure, like, and I'm not giving it, and that so there's a kind of a block of energy. This is also a block in connection. And so when I allow myself to like receive my body, scars and all, like I have stretch marks in between my, like in my thighs here, you know. I remember when I first got them when I was a teenager, like, and I was just like, oh no, now I'm one of those women that have stretch marks forever, and I'm like frantically putting bio oil between my legs, you know, as like a teenager, you know. And I'm looking at women in magazines who have no stretch marks, who have been airbrushed to shit, and I'm thinking this is normal and I'm not normal. This is what beauty is and I'm not beauty. And so like in this dance, like I would like go between my legs, like, and squeeze my thighs until like I was just like, until I felt the power in them, like until I enjoyed the power in them, until I enjoyed the fleshiness of them, until I enjoyed like watching them like little shake a little bit, until I could feel them slide against each other, you know, and take the pleasure from the contact of that, you know. And it's very powerful. And now like when I dance, I like to put my legs together, like my thighs together, and like move and slide my thighs, you know, around themselves, you know, and like it's very, very pleasurable. So for me, it's about, I did this practice for a couple of months, and oh my goodness, it was amazing. I mean, also I used to have bruises because there was times when I would squeeze myself really hard to be kind of like, oh, like just feeling ugly, and I was like, oh God, you know. And I would like hold myself, and like my friends would be like, what is happening to you? Because they like see like fingerprint bruises on me, you know. And I'm just like, oh, I'm doing a practice about loving my body. And they're like, are you loving your body? And I'm like, I'm learning to, you know. But it was like this and then over time for me, it was like I would start to transfer the pleasure I would get from, say, a song, you know, into my body. So then I would feel like my body move or like make certain shapes, and like instead of like maybe even looking in the mirror, more so feel the waves of this move. I love moving in waves and like articulating my spine like this, and it feels really pleasurable in my body. And so I would transfer those feelings like to my belly, like where I was like, I'm a little bit fat, you know, or like to my inner thighs and whatnot, like. And so when it comes to this, it's just like engage actively with loving yourself. And so and that's one way. And there's another practice that I do with women. We'll be doing it in the circles next year, which is really powerful, to be witnessed by other women. This was one of the most powerful things that I did, and one of the most kind of standout moments, I think, with regards to my body image, was to observe other women and to hear how they feel about their body. And they're like saying like, I hate my biceps, or like my little things that wiggle here, like I hate the flesh here that puckers that around my bra, like I hate my hips are too big, I don't like my thighs coming together. And I'm there looking at this woman who's like saying all of this stuff, the stuff that she doesn't like about herself, and I'm like, this woman is so beautiful and there's nothing wrong with her body, and why, I can't believe she feels like this. And at the same time that I'm thinking this, I'm also like, I'm hearing her words echoing in my head as being my words as well. And so for me, I was just kind of like, whoa, like I'm also beautiful, just as beautiful as her. And I'm thinking about all of these things. And it's like this dysmorphia that we have because of the images that beauty is in the world, you know. Go to nature. Look at observe nature. Nature is not perfect. It's organic, you know, it's always changing. Like, you know, we get big, we get small again, you know, we put on weight, we lose weight. It's okay, you know. Absolutely. And to really to enjoy yourself in all of these moments. That's what I would say. I think we have to go now.
Yeah, we do, yeah, unfortunately. So what we'll do for the Valentine's special, which will be live, we'll do...
I want to talk about STDs.
Oh, we can't.
I know. We'll talk about it next time.
So what we'll do is, anyone ask questions, thank you so much. That was brilliant questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to them all. There was
tons. Oh, my goodness.
We're, hopefully you can get to the live event, which we'll do in, as I said, which has just been decided now, your idea, in Valentine's Day this 2020. And that will be in Dublin. So... as soon as this, in the next couple of weeks or a week or so, I will, but before the new year, I'm going to have a booking page on my website, and you can reserve a place to come, and then hopefully bring your questions, and obviously there'll be a Q&A there as well. Jen, I'm sorry, I mean, we've done 2 hours.
Oh, whoa!
Yeah, which is what I'm looking to get to, like that 2 hour mark, but this was the Christmas special, so, you know.
Okay, yeah, so people have time over Christmas to listen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much. If people want to find you, where do they go?
Instagram. Hello, Jenny Keane. And in my classes as well, in my yoga classes and workshops and all that stuff. Yeah. I'm hoping to have a website next year, but God, if anyone's out there that does websites really quickly, I'd love some help.
There you go.
Yeah,
Thank
just too many things, you know.
Yeah.
I want to be like 50 people all at once, you know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.